Thank you for that. For more on the situation in Syria, let's bring in foreign policy expert Harley Lippman. Harley, thanks so much for coming back to the Leventhal report. Israel says they've entered the Syrian Golan Heights and extended the buffer zone, but Reuters, citing 3 anonymous security sources, say Israelis have advanced beyond the demilitarized zone, Israel denying it. This sounds like a big mess is about to go down. What do you know?
Well, that mess may be one of the best things to happen to the Middle East in a very long time, because you had a regime in Syria that was aligned with Iran, which is the source of all conflict and war in the Middle East, and was a conduit of military supplies to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So what this speaks to is an extraordinary defeat for Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, something that's quite remarkable.
But doesn't Israel have enough issues right now? Don't they have enough going on? How can they go into Syria at this point? And what's the goal here?
Well, they have a lot going on. They have a 7-front war, actually. But this is all very manageable because, one, they primarily defeated Hamas, and Hezbollah has been defeated. So Israel could focus on Syria, and Syria is not fighting Israel. What Israel is trying to accomplish is that they don't want these weapons to get into the hands of the radical Islamists that have taken over the government. That's the only purpose. They also don't want Iran to get a hold of it. And I think they've done the United States and civilization a great favor by destroying chemical weapon factories. Syria has used chemical weapons on its own people, and they're capable of using it against Americans, in particular sarin gas. And Israel has destroyed that. So they made it very clear that they have no territorial ambition, that it's temporary, but they want to fortify their positions because the Syrian soldiers that were manning those positions on the Syrian side of the border have left. So it's unmanned with all its weapons. And Israel did want one of the radical extremists to take those positions and then start using it to attacking Israel.
Well, see, this is one of the reasons I love having you on the show, Harley, because you make it all so clear and so easy to understand. But I do want to talk about this new group. An apparent spokesperson for them in Syria says, quote, there is no excuse for Israel to target the newly liberated territories now. This is considered an act of aggression. In the new Syria, we are not a hostile country, and therefore Israel must stop these strikes. Otherwise, our stance in the media toward Israel will change. Of course, the United Nations is also telling Israel to stop. I mean, it probably took them about 3 seconds to do that. But how worried should we be about this new group that kicked Assad out, and how worried should we be about their sort of muted threats toward Israel?
I think we have to be very worried. This is a group that's aligned with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It's a combination of both. So, as we know, we fought ISIS and Al-Qaeda for a reason. They're trying to destroy Western civilization and kill us all and convert the world into a Muslim caliphate. So this is a prime enemy. In fact, I would argue that Israel would have been probably better off with a weaker Assad. Assad was the leader of Syria until a few days ago, than even a group like this, because, you know, it's like having the Taliban on your border. I don't know what country is going to like that, because they could do an enormous amount of damage and destruction. And especially using all these Syrian weapons, they could have presented a real danger to Israel and to Western interests. So, you know, Israel
certainly. I was just going to say Israel has made a lot of progress, as you mentioned, against Iran. Iran fled Syria. The Russians are out of there. And I'm just wondering, since Assad was Russia, I mean, the two of them are in bed together, basically. Assad's now hiding out in Russia. What happens to Russia now?
Russia's very weak now. I mean, it's a huge setback for them. primarily because they've been involved with Ukraine, of course, and they're limited. I mean, they're so desperate they had to bring in, tens of thousands of Korean soldiers from North Korea to help them. So they've got bigger problems at home. But what I think this represents is an extraordinary opportunity for this new administration and for Israel to reshape the Middle East once and for all and make it fair. The people who created the nations in the Middle East was really England and France after World War I. And they did it on the back of a napkin. They didn't care about ethnic groups. They didn't care about natural borders like rivers or mountains. They just made up countries, literally, with a pen and paper. And this has caused a lot of problems. For example, the Kurds were promised a country after World War II. They never got it. And the Kurds have been great allies of ours in fighting ISIS and our enemies. And ultimately, they will all regroup, even though this is a setback for Russia and Iran and Hezbollah. Over time, they will come back. So Israel has to go after them. Part of the problem with the Obama administration is they never took them out completely. So you can't put your head in the sand and just say, well, it's good, let's just let them kill each other. I think you have to have a forward strategy of ultimately pushing Iran over the brink so you can liberate the Iranian people and free Iran and the world from this terrorist group that runs the country now.
Yeah, let's hope for progress and peace, Harley Lippman. Thanks so much for being on the show.